You are on, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the Public Schools Board of Education for November 18th, 2021. We're starting the meeting at 5:30 p.m. This is a regular scheduled board meeting. Item number 1 is opening activities. Item 1A is call to order.
You are good.
Would you mind taking roll call? And just for the record, President Noble will be running late.
Absolutely. So we have Vice President Rudy Garcia in
Here.
attendance. Yes, we have Board Member Sasha Anderson, Board Member Dr. Carmen Gonzalez, and Board Member Sarah Bose just joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Item B, 1B is the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico state flag. If somebody from staff can lead us in those.
I thought Deputy Superintendent Romero had volunteered at lunch today. Is she on? Is she not in? I do not see her. All right, so I will do the English. I think Alma would do the Spanish, and we'll tag team it from there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm on if you'd like me to read.
That's fine.
Okay. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y la república que representa una nación bajo de Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Saludo a la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo Zia de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas.
Thank you for that.
And we have the acknowledgement of the tribal land, Vice President Garcia, and I'll go ahead and read it. We acknowledge the original people of the land, the Tesuque Pueblo people and other tribal nations, and ask them to walk with us today as we share and learn together.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, staff. Item, just quickly, I only see the superintendent on my screen on the picture. Does anybody else see myself or any other board members?
Yeah, we see everybody, Vice President Garcia.
Okay, I don't see, I just see you, but that's fine. Okay, item number 1D, which is approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. Vice President Garcia, I would like to suggest that my superintendent's announcements and follow-ups come prior to the board announcements and follow-ups. So in between the union update and the board announcements.
Very well, thank you for that, Mr. Superintendent. Does anybody else have any changes to the agenda? If no, may I get a motion for approval of the amended agenda?
I move approval.
I'll second that.
We have approval by Dr. Gonzalez as well as Board Member Bourget. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is the introduction of the interpreter. Mr. Superintendent, if you can help with that.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Deputy Superintendent Romero, please.
Para servicio de traducción en español, marque 206-451-6064. A continuación, 701-802-5152. Y el número de acceso es 4277932 # y por favor mantenga su teléfono en silencio durante la traducción.
Thank you. Very well, Ms. Romero. Good job. Item number 3 is public forum. Has anybody signed up for public forum, Mr. Superintendent? And if
Our
so,
Public Information Officer, Cody Dnarski, has anybody submitted a response to public forum?
Good evening, Vice President Garcia, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. There are 0 people signed up for public forum comment tonight.
Thank you for that, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Cody. Next item is item number 6 is actually item number 6 is Superintendent Announcements and follow-up. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Item number 4, union update. My apologies.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mrs. Mayor.
I'd like to discuss the National Education Association of New Mexico legislative funding priorities for 2022. I'm going to summarize and then we'll go through a few of our recommendations. So educator wages is one of our primary focus, to pass a 10% across the board wage increase for all educators, mandate a $15 minimum wage for all public school employees, fully fund the statutory requirement increase to statewide teacher licensure levels to $45,000 for level 1, $55,000 for level 2, and $65,000 for level 3. Fund a residency model program for new educators at $35,000 per participant per year. Healthcare, require districts to pay a minimum of 80% health insurance premiums per paycheck to an employee's maximum payment of 20%. Provide sufficient funds to ensure the long-term solvency of the New Mexico Retiree Healthcare Authority. Planning time, guarantee educators adequate paid time to plan lessons, work collaboratively to improve professional practice, and assess and meet the needs of students and families. Community schools, fully fund a statewide rollout of the community schools strategy for all high poverty schools. Support community schools with much needed technical assistance and professional development. Class size and adequate staffing. Restore funding for student staff, for sufficient staff, including highly qualified teachers and support service professionals. Prohibit blanket class size waivers and obfuscating class size averaging loopholes. Early childhood education. Approve the constitutional amendment providing for additional annual distributions of the permanent school fund for the underfunded early childhood education programs and K through 12. You can turn to the next page. Educator wages. NEA New Mexico asserts the right of all people to earn a living wage, and public school employees are no exception. We demand the state take action to end our state's acute teacher shortage by implementing an across-the-board 10% wage increase and the minimum $15 wage for all public school employees. The lack of qualified educators in New Mexico can be attributed in large part to the lack of competitive compensation for those in the education profession. Accordingly, a report published by the Economic Policy Institute in 2019, the most recent year of which there is data, public school teachers in the US earned on average about 20% less weekly than non-teacher college graduates. New Mexico has the third highest teacher wage penalty in the country, with public school teachers earning nearly 30% less than non-teacher college graduates. When we consider that, according to a recent RAND survey, teachers are almost twice as likely as other employed adults to experience frequent job-related stress and almost 3 times more likely to experience depressive symptoms. We start to understand why many are leaving the education profession. The COVID-19 pandemic has further exacerbated many of the factors pushing educators, especially those early in their careers or near retirement, out of the profession. A nationwide survey of NEA members found that 32% of respondents had plans to leave the profession earlier than they anticipated as a result of the pandemic. This means an even greater crisis is looming on the horizon if swift action is not taken now. You can turn to healthcare, the next page. The issue of healthcare takes on a new weight in the context of the ongoing pandemic. Educators, the majority of whom are vaccinated, are nonetheless required on a daily basis to work closely with the largely unvaccinated student body. Things have changed in the last few weeks, however. Already numerous outbreaks have forced recent reopened schools in New Mexico to return to remote learning. And the Delta variant is changing what we thought we knew about the protections offered by masks, social distancing, and even vaccines. Through it all, educators have continued to go above and beyond to educate and support students. Despite this, many educators fear, faced with rising health insurance premiums, expensive co-pays, and declining benefits, if they are one of or someone in their family falls ill, they will not be able to afford life-saving care. Is it possible to claim that New Mexico values the work of educators when the state does not take the necessary steps to ensure their health and well-being? You can turn to planning time. There you go, thanks. In 2021, for the 5th year in a row, the Ann E. Casey Foundation ranked New Mexico 50th in the nation for education and 49th in the nation for overall child well-being. 25% of children in our state live in poverty, one of the highest rates in the country. Child poverty is shown to have long-lasting negative effects on child development and educational outcomes. Furthermore, poverty affects some students more than others. Even in our diverse state, child poverty rates are significantly higher for Hispanics, 20%, and Native American children, 29.4%, than for white children, 7.5%. High child poverty for these groups translates into markedly lower reading and math proficiency, lower graduation rates, and higher prevalence of chronic absenteeism or truancy. To meet the varied needs of our state's diverse student body, it is imperative that educators have additional non-teaching time built into their workday to learn about their students, to contact student families, develop targeted, differentiated lesson plans, and work collaboratively with other educators to improve their craft and provide support for struggling students. We can go to community schools. The community school strategy is a research-based strategy for mitigating the educational disadvantages associated with poverty and for improving students' attendance, behavior, and academic and achievement by making schools the hub of the community resources. Community schools are built with 4 pillars: integrated health and social supports, expanded learning time and opportunities, strong family and community engagement, and collaborative leadership and practice. These pillars are planned and managed by a full-time site-based community school coordinator who identifies the needs and assets in the school community and collaborates with the school leadership team, community partners, students, educators, and families to bring about grassroots change. When well implemented and fully funded, community schools have been shown to lead to improvement in students and school outcomes and contribute to meeting the educational needs of low achieving students in high poverty schools. A cost-benefit study conducted in community schools in Albuquerque found a 7.1 return on investment for every $1 spent on the cost of community a community school coordinator. Similar studies in other states have found returns on investments as high as $15 for every $1 invested in community schools, demonstrating that the strategy not only works, but that it also is a more cost-effective than many other interventions. We can go to class size and adequate staffing. According to the data from the National Center for Education Statistics, the average class size across primary and secondary grades in New Mexico was approximately 20 students in 2017-2018. State law puts average limits of 22 students per class for first, second, and third grades, 24 students per class for fourth, fifth, and sixth grades, and 27 students per class for 7th through 12th grades. However, in recent years, use and abuse of class size waivers and misleading class size averaging, as well as an over-reliance on inexperienced teachers and permanent substitutes, have obfuscated the true class load of educators, which those on the ground are telling us is only getting worse as a result of the teacher shortage. The mix of inexperience and permanent rotating and non-existent substitutes creates stress on educators and students and leads to burnout and exodus from the classroom. Experienced educators have to teach additional classes when no teacher is available. In addition, they must provide lesson plans for the 600 classrooms that do not have highly qualified teachers. And they have to supervise students in the halls, in the cafeterias, and on the playground. Early childhood education. Considerable research attests to the lifelong impact of early childhood education on everything from college graduation rates to health outcomes. And yet 55% of young children ages 3 to 4 in New Mexico are not enrolled in school of any kind. In the landmark education equity lawsuit, Yazzie Martinez versus State of New Mexico, Judge Sarah Singleton ruled that our state has violated the rights of at-risk students, children who come from economically disadvantaged homes, children who are English language learners, children who are Native American, and children with a disability by failing to provide them with a uniform statewide system of free public schools sufficient for their education, including by failing to provide them with programs and services such as quality pre-K, K3+, extended learning, dual language, culturally and linguistically relevant education, and social service. The New Mexico Funding for Early Childhood Programs Amendment, which will go before voters on the November 2022 general election, will play a critical role in addressing the findings of this case by closing educational opportunity gaps that put students at a disadvantage from an early age. It's a little more lengthier explanation of why we're taking these positions, but I know that the school board and the superintendent are well aware of our concerns in these areas and are working with NEA Santa Fe specifically to help guide us through these really challenging times. As you know, we're experiencing even more considerable issues around lack of housing or affordable housing for our staff, which is really problematic when we look at the lack of teachers and staff that we have throughout the district, including our bus drivers and even our nutrition workers, having to fill in for positions that will not probably be filled, and having individuals leave the profession almost on a weekly basis for a variety of reasons. A lot has to do with the stress and anxiety of the increased workload and some of the healthcare considerations and for family members who live in other states and for individuals themselves. But I know that we're united in presenting our positions to the legislature, and I hope that the governor and our legislator really work to fulfill our goals of getting more pay and adequate, adequate preparation time, lowering class size, and also paying for our health insurance in significant ways that they have not supported us in the past. So with that, I will answer any questions anyone has, or if you'd like, or if there's no questions, we can move on.
Well, I have a comment. Thank you, President Mayor. Your platform is very similar to the platform we presented last week at our legislative breakfast. And I also do appreciate the cooperative partnership that NEA Santa Fe has formed with the district, and we continue to work together and try to unite us moving forward. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, President, Mayor. Does anybody from the board have any comments or questions for Mrs. Mayor?
Just a comment, Mr. Vice President.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. It was incredibly informative, and it's great to hear those priorities spelled out, and echoing the superintendent, whatever we can do to be behind you in securing these legislative priorities, we'll do. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Board Member Anderson. Anybody else? I too would actually like to thank Ms. Mayor and the NEA for the positions that you're taking. Very much needed for the entire state of New Mexico. Anywhere from your top priorities, good to see. Very good top priorities. We got to push and see what those legislators are actually going to do, as well as the governor's office. And definitely, as I brought up in our meeting, the Secretary of Education. We need to see where his agenda is for this next session in 2022, because in reality, that's only 50, 60 days away. It'll be here before you know it, due to the holidays. I'm also interested, we all are interested in to see what the state legislature, as well as the governor, is going to do in regards to the Ozzie Martinez. How are we going to address that? What are they going to do? How are they going to address that? But I think your top priorities, positions are very good. Thank you, Ms. Mayor, for that. Okay, moving, as board president will say, moving right along. We have
Vice President Garcia.
Yes.
President Noble just joined us.
And I have my hand up.
Oh, I apologize, Board Member Gonzalez. I only see myself on my camera, but yes.
So, Madam President, members of the board, I met with two legislators today, and they both said that they are definitely going to be putting in, another lamp here because it's so dark. Sorry. Anyway, they said that they're going for about 10% increase, and that the governor is definitely, behind that. So I think we're going to be in good shape as far as a raise for teachers. Thank you, Grace.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Gonzalez. I will turn over the meeting to our president, which is now in session with us, is President Kate Noble. Ms. Noble, we are actually on item number 6, which is Superintendent Announcements and Follow-up.
Great. Thank you very much, Vice President Garcia. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry that I was late. I had a work commitment that I couldn't get out of, but I will go watch the meeting, and so I can understand what the NEA priorities are. And just also to say, I, like Dr. Gans, had a conversation with a couple legislators today. We didn't talk as specific numbers as it sounds like she did, but they also committed to me that they are going to push for as big a raise for educators as they can, because they recognize the truth of where we are and how underfunded we've been. So,
Madam President?
yes, Dr. Gonzalez.
They also said that they are moving to hold districts harmless because just about every district has requested that, so.
That's wonderful. Thank you. All right, Superintendent, are you still going?
I am. I'll start superintendent's announcements as we move that up prior to board announcements.
Okay.
I will start. Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. First off, congratulations to our Santa Fe High School Demon Boys Soccer team. For winning the 5A, Class 5A state championship. The team led by Coach Chris Eady clinched the Class 5A championship on November 5th. And we had an amazing crowd there, probably over 1,000, 1,500. I saw Vice President Garcia there in attendance as well. Playing at the UNM Soccer Complex, the team won 4-3 against Albuquerque Sandia in overtime. This is the first state title for the program and the Demons' first official state appearance. So they made it 1-for-1. So congratulations. Also, congratulations to the Santa Fe Public School Outstanding Golden Apple winners. And I think we had a few on, so if you can turn on your camera. The 2020 Golden Apple Excellence in Teaching Awards were presented on November 5th to 3 Santa Fe Public School educators by the Golden Apple Foundation of New Mexico. Santa Fe Public School educators are Chantel Dixon. She received the award as a teacher at Capitol High. She is currently an assistant principal at El Dorado Community School. Carmen C. Moon is also an English teacher at Capitol High School. Richard M. Pittman, biology teacher at Santa Fe High. Jay Clack, who teaches AP English at Capitol High, was named a Teacher of Distinction. In total, 7 outstanding educators across the state Excellence in Teaching Awards. Again, we are joined. Are any of them here? Let's take a look.
I am, but I'm not home, so I don't want to turn my camera on.
Did you want to say a few words, Ms. Dixon? This is Chantel Dixon, assistant principal at El Dorado Community School.
I guess first I feel a little awkward that none of them showed up but me. But I think that it's an award that should go to every teacher. Everyone deserves to be recognized for their hard work. And I plan on continuing to nominate our teachers because we have some amazing teachers in this district. And like I said, I think everyone deserves an award for all they do for our kids.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. I also met with the individual on the board, and we had, if I remember correctly, about 13 educators from Santa Fe that have been awarded this Teaching of Excellence Award. And so President Noble, at some point in the future, when COVID cases are not on the rise, I would like to bring that forward as a dinner to honor those teachers of Santa Fe Public Schools yearly and just bringing them together. So I think as a district, we should look at something like that moving forward, just so we can continue to honor the teachers and promote this award that they've received. Again, congratulations to Santa Fe Public School All-State students for the 2021 school year. We have a lot of students. We will put them out on social media. We will send out a news update, but we had students from Capitol High, Mandala, Santa Fe High. They worked very diligently over the past weekend with their teachers to earn all-state honors. Again, this is in band, choir, orchestra, and guitar. So we had, I'm going to say about 30 or 35 students that received this award. So we will definitely honor them and get them out with notification. Santa Fe Public Schools, we launched a new dashboard on Monday. The media reports accompanying the rollout of our new COVID dashboard, which expands transparency and reporting to our school communities and the public. Yesterday afternoon, we had over 1,300 views or hits on the dashboard, which can be viewed both on your laptop or mobile devices. Parents whose students are in classrooms with a positive student will still receive that notification. This is just another way to provide transparency and information to the public. Again, congratulations to our Public Information Officer, Cody Donarski. He was the real brains behind developing this dashboard and everything that went into it. So thank you, Cody. Santa Fe Public Schools will hold a second COVID-19 vaccination clinic on Saturday for children 5 to 11. The clinic will be held again at Desert Sage Academy at 351 West Zia Road from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We currently have 400 seats available. The first clinic held last weekend had 500 seats available and they rapidly filled up. So by Thursday of last week, all seats for that first clinic were filled. So we're definitely encouraging them to register quickly. Parents can register their children for the vaccine at vaccinenm.org. Once they have a profile, they can log in and select schedule your appointment, which takes them to the clinic location and date. And lastly, just wanted to update everyone. This afternoon, we notified staff and our community that on Tuesday, November 23rd, we will transition to an asynchronous remote day district-wide. This again is to help prevent the spread of COVID in our schools and also to allow families 4 days of planning for that transition on Tuesday. So we have been asked, why not both days? It was really to allow families 4 days of planning for that Tuesday transition. And that concludes my superintendent's announcements.
Thank you, Superintendent. And just want to say again, congratulations to the Golden Apple winners. And I love the idea of a dinner, especially, I mean, the Golden Apple format, I hadn't been before and had the honor to attend the event and to hear the teachers' speeches is a real treat. So I would hope that maybe we can even ask teachers to do the speeches again, because it's just incredibly inspiring to hear from the folks who are doing the hard work, and in their own voices, they all gave incredibly excellent speeches. So congratulations, Ms. Dixon, who's here, and all the other winners. Really amazing stuff. And yes, it's great news that we're doing vaccine clinics, and really appreciate that. And hopefully we can keep pushing that out, because we need kids getting vaccinated. All right, anything from the board on superintendent announcements?
Madam President, this is Rudy.
Go ahead.
Just
Yeah,
really
go
quick.
ahead, Vice President.
Thank you, Madam President. Just out of the 7 Golden Apple award winners, it was great to see 3 from Santa Fe. Excellent job. Excellent speeches, as you mentioned earlier. Ms. Moon, you did an excellent job up there and got the whole audience going with your laughter and how you go about teaching laughter through your class. Ms. Dixon, Mr. Clack, very good job. And there was actually 4 individuals from Santa Fe. One was from a charter school, I believe. So there was actually 4 out of the 7 that were from Santa Fe. Great job to the community and to all your educators that actually were nominated for this award. The soccer team, speaking about probably the last of my 3rd or 4th soccer game I went to. Awesome. Speaking of having almost a heart attack in the last 1-1, 1-2, it was just an amazing game. And now I'm a soccer fan, but congratulations to the boys and to all the other announcements that the superintendent brought forward. Thank you, Madam President.
Thanks, Vice President. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to board announcements and follow-up. Start with any brief updates on our committees. The Audit Committee, Dr. Gonzalez can help me out here, but ultimately our audit is complete and will be coming to the board for acceptance soon. I think we're not supposed to say
Correct.
what's in it yet.
You are correct.
Madam President, in regards to the Audit Committee, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I do have an individual who would like to fulfill my position on the Audit Committee. I don't know if this is the time to bring it up.
We have it on at the end of the agenda on our board discussion and possible action, because we do need to notice it as an action item and act on it.
Thank you.
May I add the Audit President Noble?
Yes, please.
Yes, I just wanted to, really commend our team led by Robert Martinez. It was submitted on time. Once it's released, we'll definitely come back for the to present it to the board for approval. But again, congratulations to the Audit Committee and our team for really putting in a lot of long hours and hard work.
So you got there before me. I was going to
I'm
say
sorry.
it's been incredibly, it's been an incredible amount of work, and really just huge appreciation to the finance staff, Robert Martinez and his team, and as well as the members of the Audit Committee and our auditors who have worked on it. And not to be pedantic, but the board actually doesn't approve the audit, we accept it. Just to be clear, because we're not qualified to approve or not approve. Auditors do the audit and we accept it on behalf of the district. So that will be coming soon. And, you know, it's a great lens through which to learn about the district, which is why personally, I know I say this a lot, but I love the Audit Committee and I really appreciate all of the work and the time that goes into it. And it's not always easy. And honestly, it's terminology and you know, understanding things. School finance is incredibly complex, and really just appreciate all the work that goes into that. So, Dr. Gonzalez, do you want to add anything?
Madam President, members of the board, I think you covered it pretty well. We did have an audit corrective action report at that meeting. We discussed the educational technology note, but basically it was about the audit update. So we'll find out in a few weeks.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our Community Review Committee. Board Member Anderson or Secretary Bose, you want to update us on that?
Board President Noble, I'm happy to, unless Secretary Bose would prefer to.
Go ahead, Board Member Anderson.
Thanks. So at the CRC meeting, we got some great updates about staff members who were promoted. Jean Bostwick, who was promoted to the Director of Construction and Real Property, which was fantastic to hear. We got updates on the current construction projects. And I think most importantly, what we talked about were the 2021 GO bond project priorities and all the work that is going to begin very soon that is just going to dramatically improve the buildings in the district. It was really great to hear, and it was great to see how well the team had put together these updates and knew exactly what was going to happen when, and had budgeted really well. So it was, I thought it was a great meeting, and I was really lucky to be a part of it.
Secretary Bose, anything to add?
Nothing to add. It was wonderful to have Board Member Anderson there, as well as meeting a couple of the other new appointees to the board as well. Sorry, to the committee.
Thank you. Okay, any other board announcements or follow-up?
Madam President, this is Rudy.
Go ahead.
Just, I forgot to mention Mr. Martinez from the our financial division. Very good job on the audit and overseeing the entire school budget. Very good, and as well as your entire team. I forgot to mention that. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. The Citizens Review Committee. I think that's actually an excellent committee that makes recommendations to the Board of Education. Very good, diverse talent of individuals on that entire board, and I'm glad to see that they're very faithful, loyal, and are still attending those meetings, because as the two board members mentioned, there are some bonds that are going to be coming forward for approval from the Board of Education, and there's a lot of work out there. And once again, thanks to the community and all the volunteers. Thank you guys. Thank you, board members, for being on that Citizens Review Committee. Very good, interesting committee. You see, it all happens before the ribbon cutting, but thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, do you want me to talk about a meeting, or should I talk about it later during the board discussion?
I think this is a good time. It's up to you. They're both appropriate places, but if it's sort of a follow-up item, now's a good time.
Okay. Earlier this week, Superintendent Chavez and I met with the school regarding COVID issues, and they would like us to look into the possibility of a vaccine mandate. But we need to look at the legal ramifications. Does the vaccine mandate for companies who employ over 100 people apply to school districts? We also need to ensure that all COVID protocols are being followed. So what do you all think? Should we have the superintendent have a team look into this? I'm putting it out there for you all.
Any thoughts from the board? I mean, I guess my thought is, sort of what is the question we're trying to answer or the problem we're trying to solve for? And I appreciate that we've had a terrifying number of cases in our schools, and I think things are pretty raw right now from what I've seen and felt and heard, and really hope that I guess we can be very compassionate for specifically the folks that have been exposed or have gotten sick. That is really, really awful. And it all feels sort of fragile right now in our schools with the teachers and all of the staff shortages and what everyone has been facing. So, I guess my hope is that we very clear about the work that we're doing and its purpose, because there's just many issues, and it feels like a tinderbox, and I hope that we can keep things calm, responsive, that we can. Oh, my internet connection is unstable, apparently. I hope you can hear me.
You can turn the camera off, that works better.
It does, yeah. It seems to. You all look fine. It seems to be all right. So yeah, I guess I want us to be careful, and I think I appreciate the superintendent's decision to have an asynchronous day on Tuesday, because I feel just sort of generally in my place of work and interactions in the that we're in a very fragile, raw, and somewhat dangerous place, and I don't want us to tear ourselves apart. I really do think that schools are it's like we're the leading edge of every storm because of the reasons we've discussed many, many times before in these meetings. But kids are sponges as to what's going on, and they come together in schools. And right now, teachers have and everybody throughout the district has been stretched thinner than imaginable. So I guess again, I hope we're really clear about what we're doing, because the superintendent and the team are moving a lot of great things, and I hope that we can know what problem we're solving for as we move forward. So,
Madam President, I agree.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, I agree with you. I think we have to be very careful about what kind of decision we make, because it can affect us all for a very long time. Superintendent Chavez, do you have any comments on that meeting that we had?
Yes, Dr. Gonzalez, thank you, Board President, Noble, members of the board. We did meet with the group. We listened to them. They gave some great suggestions. Some of the suggestions that they've provided is something that I took with me to meet with our team immediately about, really how are we stopping the spread of COVID? Are we tightening up our protocols? Are we taking a look at what's going on in the classroom? You name it, masks, proper wearing of masks, fans, purifiers. So again, we're looking at what we can do as a reason to stop or slow the spread of COVID. One of the things that was brought forward was also taking a look at our code of conduct as far as students not wearing their masks properly. So I think it's, again, as we near Thanksgiving, just remembering that COVID safe practices should be at least taken a look at first, making sure that we are practicing social distancing, proper mask wearing, continuing to promote the vaccine, with our shot clinics. I know President Mayer had asked me to look into providing a shot clinic or a booster clinic for staff. So that's something that we're definitely looking into. So we're listening, we're hearing some of the resolutions or possible solutions coming forward, and we're really taking them on one thing at a time. So again, we're doing our part to really take a look internally first as far as the protocols we could possibly tighten up.
Board Member Anderson.
Thank you so much to Dr. Gonzalez and to Superintendent Chavez. Thank you, President Noble. Excuse me, I didn't properly message that. Thank you for recognizing me. And thank you to Dr. Gonzalez and to Superintendent Chavez for meeting with those parents. And I have, as I'm sure we all have, received some emails from some of those parents, and I've also spoken with other parents and texted and gotten phone calls from other parents who are very concerned about the safety of their children, as I think we all are. That remains my top priority, the safety of children and of staff members. And as I spoke, Superintendent Chavez and I spoke about, many of our children are living in multi-generational families who have immunocompromised people in their homes. And I think we just have to take this so seriously. And we also know from the science that unvaccinated people spread COVID more easily than vaccinated people. I hope that all of our students will sign up to be vaccinated who are eligible. And I would hope that teachers who are smart, responsible people who we trust with our children would also trust the science and all who are able be vaccinated. And I understand that we need to look into the legalities, and we also need to think about the realities of staffing. I know that's something that we've spoken about, the realities of the fact that we are in a staffing crisis and could potentially have, the lack of a teacher in a classroom. And I understand that people have different opinions. Mine is very strong. I believe very strongly in the safety and efficacy of vaccines that are before us. And so to Dr. Gonzalez's question, and also to Board President Noble's question and comment, if we know the question that we're asking, I would like for us to look more closely into it. What are all of the different ways that we can keep our students safe, from tightening up our COVID protocols to looking into a vaccine mandate for, with medical exemptions, obviously. I think that everything has to be on the table. And I think that, we're going into the holidays, and we know that there's going to be increased COVID unsafe behavior, that there are going to be more gatherings, that there's going to be more interaction with those immunocompromised, grandparents and aunties and uncles. And I think we're just in a very precarious time. And I think that as a district, we have to be both very thoughtful and move very quickly and actively to ensure that everything is as tight as possible. So, I'm in a space where I'm not specifically calling for a vaccine mandate, but I do think, yes, President Mayer, yes, I agree. I would push for students to be vaccinated. I don't know that I'm willing to go so far right now as to say a mandate for students, but I would encourage all of our students and all of our parents to get their children vaccinated. And now I've taken up too much time, but I just want to be sure that we are doing as much as we possibly can for our students and our staff.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. I would totally agree with and second that last part. I think we, especially that last part, you know, I think we need to make sure we're doing everything that we can to keep folks safe. We need to tighten up our protocols. We need to look at making sure that there is mask wearing in our schools. And we need to get kids vaccinated. That's the game changer here. So yeah, I think that it's hard. We've all gotten tired in the pandemic, and our protocols, I'm not sure anybody here would disagree that protocols have slipped for one reason or another in lots of places. And I hope we can really tighten that up. Vice President Garcia and then Secretary Boze.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with what everybody has said, and we're all on the same page. We all want the best for our children. Question I have is, who are these group of individuals? And then also, I would like to see regarding Dr. Gonzalez's question as into should the superintendent actually form a board or some sort of a committee to look into this. And I would like to hear what the superintendent has to say in regards to that. Thank you, Madam President.
Secretary Boze. Oh, sorry, Superintendent, do you want to respond?
I do, yeah, if you don't mind. Vice President Garcia, the individuals we spoke about were a group of parents from one of our schools that Dr. Gonzalez and I met with. And then secondly, you know, again, it's a lot of research that would need to take place, review of data information from other states or even districts that have implemented a vaccine mandate, you know, making this decision without a deep dive into some of these situations around the country, you know, I think should take place prior to even having an agenda item, as it's going to take some work, right? We're right in the middle of the pandemic. We're finishing up semester one, you know, holidays around the corner. So this would be something that could take some time to really look into, to bring the data back to even consider.
And everybody needs a break.
Thank you, Madam President.
Secretary Boze.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I wrote up some thoughts about this earlier. So I will take up as much time as Board Member Anderson did, if not more. I've been thinking a lot lately about our former board member, Lorraine Price. I always think about her often, but more so in the last week, I think. I didn't know her as long as many of you did, but I got the distinct impression that she was not someone to avoid difficult conversations. I'm going to try to live up to my promise of thinking, what would Lorraine Price do when we are faced with these challenging topics? It's for that reason that I took the time to write these thoughts of mine today. I recognize that this is, unfortunately, what many would call a touchy subject. We were all failed by our leaders at the start of the pandemic who put politics ahead of public safety. Viruses are not political, and public safety should absolutely not be political. Yet we must recognize that this is the environment under which we are all functioning. As a nurse, I choose to look simply at the facts and what courses of action deliver the most good for the most people. The current fact is that COVID-19 in our state is quite high right now and not showing any sign of decreasing. Students in our schools, as well as a lower number of our staff, are testing positive for COVID-19. The fact that spread within schools has been very low speaks highly of the safety protocols that have been implemented district-wide. So kudos to that. I understand that the cases we're seeing, for the most part, are reflective of community spread. Yet we recently saw a situation at one of our schools where spread did happen in the classroom, and we had quite a large ripple effect in the community. We as a board would be remiss if we did not address this event. I would not be living up to my promise of thinking, what would Lorraine Price do, if I did not say this is why she supported a vaccine mandate for teachers and school staff. We should have this conversation openly and honestly and with our community present. As with all things, it is not as simple as one might think. We face an enormous complexity of issues within our schools right now, as have already been brought up. It is important to note, for those that might not know, fully vaccinated people can still become infected and transmit COVID-19, though this happens at much lower levels than in unvaccinated people. A vaccine mandate will not eliminate that possibility, and that's why we use multiple approaches to provide protection, such as mask wearing and air circulation and social distancing, which I understand is very hard in classrooms where there are 25 to 30 kids. It is also important to note that we passed a resolution regarding staffing at our last meeting, and that we as a district recognize we are in a staffing crisis. As it was said during the meeting in August when we last discussed vaccine mandates for school staff, there is a chance that mandating COVID vaccination could worsen this staffing crisis. Families who support vaccine mandates for school staff should consider whether or not they would feel upset or dissatisfied if their child's teacher left the district because of a vaccine mandate, or if they would feel okay with another child's classroom education being disrupted by a teacher leaving. These are not simple questions to answer. Conversely, unvaccinated school staff will cause disruption to classrooms if or when they become sick with COVID-19. It is truly a rock and a hard place in which we find ourselves. During the history of our country, there is a precedent for vaccine mandates for students as well as teachers, and that schools historically also have been a place where public health concerns are addressed. We are here ultimately for teaching and learning, and that cannot happen in unsafe environments. I listened to a year-old interview today with former President Barack Obama. He said something which I think is very relevant to this situation, and that is, just because something does not have a perfect answer does not mean it has a better answer. And so I know we're talking about what's the question, and I think ultimately the question is, how do we keep our students and our staff safe? And I think that it's good that we're having this conversation tonight. And I don't know that there is a clear-cut, right, and easy decision to be made, but it is certainly worthy of our time to have that discussion and spend the time looking into the various possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Bose. Board Member Anderson.
Sorry, thank you, President Noble. In my long diatribe, I forgot one thing, which is just a sincere thank you to Superintendent Chavez and all of the leadership team. I know that this has been, that you have worked so hard to keep our students safe and to keep our staff safe. So I just want to thank you very much for all of your hard work. I know that you've been, in our conversation, Superintendent Chavez, it has reflected how much you all have thought about this and how much you all have done. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Also, just to note, I hope somebody's looking out. I think Vice President Garcia got kicked out of the meeting, and he texted he was trying to get back in. So I hope he's not in a waiting room somewhere. Okay. Any other comments on this? I would encourage board members, I think, I agree with Secretary Bose. We do need to talk about how we keep our kids and staff members safe, and do everything we can to ensure that people aren't getting sick. And so I would encourage board members, to talk to the superintendent, and we can, continue to work through this together. I appreciate the conversation. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, the one legal question I think that we need to get answered is the president has mandated any company or whatever that has over 100 employees has to mandate vaccines. So a parent asked, does that apply to schools? So we just need to get a response about that.
Dr. Gonzalez, and our legal counsel, Josh Granata, can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it reads that they are asking them to become vaccinated. If they get an exemption or they are not vaccinated, then they have to participate in weekly staffing, which we currently already do. So that is our current practice within the district, encouraging those that do not provide a proof of vaccine or decline to identify, then we consider them as unvaccinated and they do have to participate in weekly staffing.
Testing, weekly testing. Apparently I am pedantic tonight. Okay, well, thank you all for your thoughtfulness and commitment, and let's keep wrestling with it as a community. We will go ahead and move on to our action items, starting with the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that board members would like to vote on separately or have questions about? Ooh, that's nice snow. Seeing none, is there a motion? We still don't have Vice President Garcia back, do we?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Burson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice President Garcia says he's trying to get back in. Somebody tell me if you see him, and I don't.
We're on the lookout.
Secretary Bose. Okay, thank you. So voting on the consent agenda, Secretary Bose.
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
And the president also votes yes. Thank you very much. Moving on to action item B, second reading and approval of amended policy 100, duties and authority of the board. Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Second reading will be made by Josh Granata, our legal counsel, Santa Fe Public School legal counsel.
Good afternoon, or good evening, rather, Board President Noble, board members, Superintendent Chavez. Before you tonight, we have the second reading of Policy 100, which is the duties and authority of the board. And there are a few small changes to this policy. Basically, this policy is being updated to reflect the changes in the election code, which require for board elections to happen during the regular election in November. And so what this policy will do is basically allow for the board to have a vote at the beginning of the new calendar year, once the new board members are part of the board, to reorganize the board. And this will happen annually for an election of the president, vice president, and secretary. There are additionally some small edits to the policy and just to update in terms of statutory changes that have been made. That's really about it, Board President Noble and board members.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Granata. Ms. Bahar, maybe we could see the policy just so we can glance at it. This is our second reading, so it is the final approval, if you will. And I don't know if we have red line changes. We do. There we go. So ultimately, as Mr. Granata outlined, this puts us sort of on schedule officially with the local elections having been consolidated. And because terms begin officially January 1, and Board Member Anderson and I are taking up new terms as of January 1. So that's the timing in which, in essence, we do our board organization and elect president, vice president, and secretary. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts about this? And ultimately, you know, I think we did it, I can't even remember. Can't remember anything, but I think we did it this year in January, but this would mean that we will be doing it in, you know, roughly a month and a half at our first meeting in January. It's always a little bit jarring and a little bit awkward, but you know, got to do it once a year, sometime or another.
Board President Noble, I move approval.
I will
Thank you, Board
second.
Member Anderson. Thank you, Secretary Bose. Any further discussions or questions? No sign of Vice President Garcia trying to get back on. All right, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this second reading and approval of policy 100. Secretary Bose,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
and the President also votes yes. Thank you very much. Next, we have action item C, the first reading of policy 354, opioid overdose. I just lost my agenda. Opioid overdose response. See some key people here. Superintendent, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight, taking us through our first reading of policy 354 would be our Executive Director of Student Wellness, Ms. Sue O'Brien, and also our General Counsel, Josh Granata.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Chavez. This evening, we're seeking board approval for the first reading of the opioid overdose response policy, which is 354. With me this evening is Jen Jefferson, our prevention coordinator with Santa Fe Public Schools, along with Bernie Living, who is actually one of our state overdose prevention educating coordinators. And I asked them to be part of this presentation to you this evening because I'm anticipating any questions that I might not be able to answer. Bernie has a lot of expertise as he works around the state, and of course, Jen in our own office. So what's important to know is board policy 354 is a new policy for us, and we believe it's a critical policy given the climate of exposure and use of opioids amongst our youth. First and foremost, this policy was created with the purpose of preventing injury and death from resulting in opioid overdose amongst our students and staff. The policy and its accompanying administrative regulations outline opportunities for training and naloxone administration for our staff and for our students, how one would respond to an opioid overdose, and then also our obligations around how we would store and manage the naloxone. Additionally, this policy really allows us to act. It allows us, either personnel or our students, to act and respond to an overdose. And that's provided that the actions are done in good faith and with reasonable care, and be able to do that by statute without either civil liability, criminal prosecution, or professional disciplinary action. We believe the adoption of this policy And the action of the board is time sensitive, given how we know our students are engaging in drug use. And we really would want to be able to act and respond. So tonight we're asking for approval or perhaps any feedback that you might have for us for improvement on this first reading. And at this point, we stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. O'Brien. Questions from the board?
President Noble.
Go ahead, Secretary Bazay.
Thank you, President Noble, members of the board. I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I appreciate this policy being brought forward. It's unfortunate that it's necessary, but again, it's always better to be prepared. And this is life-saving and very crucial. So I appreciate the Office of Student Wellness and their care and attention to this matter. Thank you.
And just a quick note, it looks like we did finally get Vice President Garcia back. So welcome back, Vice President. Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble. Just to follow up on Secretary Bossay's comments, I thank you. I grew up with a person who used opiates in my house and had an opiate addiction, and I know how troubling that can be, and I know how widespread and pervasive this use is. And so in order to save lives of those going through this very hard period, I just commend you for anything you can do to save lives, and this policy does it.
Thank you.
Anything further from the board?
Madam,
Mr.
I
Lee?
move approval.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. And Vice President Garcia, did you want to make a comment or ask a question?
No, I just think this is so, thank you, Madam President. I just think this is something that our community needs to address, and, definitely, especially for the schools and moving forward on this. I think this is great. We have some challenges in this community, as you all know, we deal with our jail, which is us taxpayers that pay for our jail. And this is something that we struggle with every day as into how do we actually help out the community with the different addictions that go through our community. And this is actually one of many that is a start for our schools to bring forward and hopefully save lives, and a lot more with this. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And Mr. Liebing, I don't believe any board members other than me have had the benefits of your presentation before, but given that you're here, and I learned a great deal when you presented to the board in my early days, I just want to invite you to say anything and say that I hope you'll come back and educate us sometime. But thanks for being here, and please, your comments.
Thank you, President Noble. And Vice President Garcia, long time no see. Superintendent and members of the board, thank you for having me. I just came from Santa Fe High, where we were going to be conducting a Spanish language training for the community tonight. Unfortunately, no one showed up, so forgive my hoodie, and I don't have a tie or a bolo on. But I first want to really recognize Sue and Jen for their leadership in this. And I had worked with the Office of Student Wellness when I was actually a contractor with the public schools working for the Santa Fe Prevention Alliance. So I'd worked with them before, but this is a new level of community engagement and work that we have done together over the last couple of weeks. And I would be happy to put my cell phone number and my email in the chat for any of the board members or superintendent or any one who wants to get a hold of me and talk about this stuff further. And I'm always available. Also, I would like to thank Anita. I see Anita on here. I'd like to thank Anita as well for her leadership in this work in the public schools. So I would like to let everyone know I'm a resource to you. If there's a question or a concern that I cannot address to your satisfaction, I can certainly engage all the expertise that we have here in the statewide to get your questions or concerns answered. And if you will allow me, I'd be happy to put my contact information in the chat and let people contact me as they feel necessary and important for moving this work forward.
Thank you. That's a very generous offer. And yes, please. And we really appreciate you making yourself available and putting out that offer to us. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Vice President Garcia.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Bernie Leving, actually, he asked, long time no see board member. He and I go back, way back, as into for some nonprofit organizations that he actually has assisted for this community. Working the state legislature, he's very instrumental in knowing how that roundhouse works. Sometimes you go in circles around that roundhouse, but he actually knows where those different offices are and how to get through and into those offices. Sue, thank you very much for what you do. I know Jen from a previous, I know her background, and she actually comes from a nonprofit organization which does great, tremendous things, strides for this community to help improve the betterment of this communities. So thank you all, whoever works on this and worked on this, because this is a great start, and we need to all communicate and come together as a community, because a lot of that stuff is coming, and we need to start preparing for it. And it's unfortunate, but it's here. You're right, it is here. You have fentanyl and everything else. It's horrible out there, and this is a great start for us to take the lead from any school districts in the state of New Mexico. Thank you all. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. Just wanted to have Jan announce what she put in the chat, since we can only see the chat, giving her the opportunity to take the floor.
Thank you very much, President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent Chavez. We've been pleased to this week offer 4 different overdose response trainings hosted in both English and Spanish. And we'll be offering a round of virtual trainings coming up on December 6th, which is a Monday. That will be in Spanish. And then on December 7th, we'll be hosting it in English. We will be putting more marketing materials out there. This training is open to everyone and anyone in the Santa Fe community. We're really trying to provide this for Santa Fe Public Schools parents, as well as the greater community at large. So we hope you will join us. We'll also be providing, courtesy of Bernie Living and the Living Group, we'll be providing Narcan kits as well. So we hope you can join us.
Jen, what time are these trainings?
They will be from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. and they will be virtual, and you can just sign in via Zoom and pick up your kit later.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Living, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, Superintendent Chavez, Vice President Garcia, and members of the board. Just to let you know that not only am I a concerned community member and have a professional hat to wear here, I'm also a parent of a freshman at Santa Fe High School, who I am proud to say carries Narcan nasal spray in her backpack because she does not want to, she says it is better to have it and not need it than to walk into the girls' bathroom and not be able to be what I call the on-scene first responder who can actually have a person revived prior to summoned first responders in the form of Santa Fe Fire Department, EMS and fire arriving at the scene. So I just wanted to put that out there that a lot of this is hitting very close to home, personally and professionally. And it impacts probably all of us in different ways, every single one of us on this call. So anything I can do to support and collaborate and be a resource for the district, for board members, and for teachers and families in the community, I'm grateful to do so. And actually, I'll leave you with this. I'm actually doing a multiple family outdoors in the backyard training on Monday late afternoon with parents and students from Santa Fe Public Schools at a home because a family wants to be able to have their kids and themselves be able to know how to recognize and respond to a suspected opioid overdose. So there is lots of movement, lots of moving parts, lots of stuff happening simultaneously in our community to address this. One thing that I think is really important to note is that we always look towards addressing the antecedents of what we are seeing in our community. What are the social determinants? What are the things that historically have impacted our communities, and have a simultaneous track of, let's save people's lives, let's teach people to use Narcan, but let's also work as a community to address those things that precipitate problematic substance use among youth and adults in our communities. So thanks again for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for being such an incredible community resource. I love that. Let's save lives and address the issues that lead to this. So thank you all for your work. This is a first reading of policy 354, opioid overdose response. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion from the board? We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Vice President Garcia,
Yes.
Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
and the president also votes yes. Thanks again. Great to see you all. Appreciate you being here. Okay. Moving swiftly along on our agenda, we are now at board discussion and possible action. Vice President Garcia, you have someone to nominate for the Audit Committee.
Yes, Madam President, thank you. His name is Sam Montoya. He actually is, he works in a financial portion of Santa Fe County. He does an excellent job. And I asked him if he wanted to serve on part of the Audit Committee, and he said he has a lot of, he actually said yes, he would do it. And I have some tremendous actually respect for Sam. He actually runs a lot of grants in our department. He actually oversees our audit that we have for the county. He actually does also help and assist in the county financial team to prepare our annual budget. But his name is Sam Montoya, and I'd like to nominate him as my Audit Committee nominee, and I will actually introduce him and Elma so they can get their contact information. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, President Noble. I would like to nominate Hannah Patrick for the Community Review Committee. Hannah is a teacher at EJ Martinez, as well as a parent of a NAVA student. And she has a unique interest in spatial justice, which I was not familiar with, but I'll define for those, if there's anyone else on the call who's not familiar with it. It's the fair and equitable distribution in space of socially valued resources and opportunities to use them. And I just can't think of any better match for the CRC than someone with an interest in that, who's also a teacher and a parent. So I'm looking forward to having her on the committee, and I'll also get in touch with Alma and get her Hannah's contact information.
Great, thank you.
President
Any other
Noble,
yes, go ahead, Secretary Bozay.
I know that I still have a vacancy to fill on the CRC. It's not for lack of trying. So that's still in progress. I think the people that I have asked just have very full plates right now and are feeling hesitant to commit to more at this time, but my search continues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I will go ahead and make a motion that we nominate Sam Montoya to the Audit Committee and Hannah Patrick to the CRC.
I will second that.
Thank you, Secretary Bozay. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Vice President Garcia,
Yes.
Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
and the president also votes yes. We have 2 new committee members. Thank you. Anything else for board discussion? Seeing nothing. Going once, going twice. We'll go ahead and move on to advanced planning. We have, I hope I'll told Alma whether we're attending the NMSBA annual convention at the beginning of December. We also have a board meeting scheduled for December 9th. And look, a whole new year, or at least up through the end of the fiscal year of meetings is on the schedule there. Any comments or changes from anyone? So I'll discuss this with the superintendent, but my hope is that we can have some sort of substantial financial conversation on December 9th. It may be framing with the audit, but really our budget process will be here before we know it. And I really think this is a good time to work as a board, work with the administration. You know, this is really in a way the biggest thing we do, given that, well, there's a couple other things we may have to do in the new year, but the budget is really the biggest, most expansive, and most impactful thing in a lot of ways. So I hope that we can start getting our heads around that early, and maybe with a conversation in December. But that's my hope, Superintendent. I've been meaning to say that to you. And if the staff needed to push the meeting a week, I don't know what December 16th would look like for everyone, but that might be helpful. I don't know. I'm just, saying what's in my head right now. So that's my hope. I think that we have a bunch of work to do, and this will be my 6th budget process. It always happens way faster, and you never have quite as much time as you want. So I'm hoping we can, again, at least start to frame the conversation early.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead, Secretary Bozay.
Thank you. If I may, and not to detract from the importance of the budget, but a few months ago, we talked about having some study sessions, one regarding housing, and one regarding, kind of the student wellness, social emotional work that's happening and what else could be done. So I don't anticipate that those will be able to be squeezed in before the holidays, but if we could make sure that those are addressed kind of early in the year before we get too deep into budget, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the reminder. That's very important, Superintendent. Maybe we can talk about that and figure out a schedule for working those in. Anything else on advanced planning? All right, going once, going twice. Hope to see you all at the beginning of December at the NMSBA conference. It's a great learning opportunity. Okay, we are adjourned. Good night, good luck. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Good night, everyone. Stay well.
Bye, Joe. Thanks.